Good morning. Boy, it's a cold winter morning. Just out here on the Snake River, getting the ducks and geese. It's a very cold morning this morning. All these birds are huddled together. It's the Saturday before the Super Bowl, 2009. There's some of the ducks and there's some of the geese. I've been reading more in Brant Gardner's commentary and thoroughly enjoying it. Because of the recent biblical scholarship over the last 20 years or so, the interesting ideas on King Josiah's reform, Brant has some very interesting ideas on Laman and Lemuel that I want to explore with you and share with you and show you and he admits it's speculation. That's the one thing I like about Brant, is he'll tell you when he's speculating to help us understand better the Book of Mormon story, and when he's presenting some solid documented information. But the beautiful thing about Brant's ideas is they help us make sense. They help us understand the implications of the Book of Mormon story and why the people act the way they do. And I really like that. I really like that. So I'm going to go back into my library and share with you some ideas on Laman and Lemuel that Brant has that I believe is worth looking at and worth understanding, because it makes sense on how the Lamanites and Nephites participate with each other, how they interact with each other, why they have wars, why there's hatred, how they're converted back and forth to each other, why they go wicked, so on and so forth. It is extremely interesting. It helps give a diversity to the Book of Mormon that I have never supposed before. And it's one thing I like about Brant. And then I've been reading in the Book of Mormon again. I'm back up into the Book of Mosiah yet again for the third time this year. It's an enjoyable commentary it's an enjoyable book to make a commentary on. So looks like there's some exciting things going on here on the river. If you're a duck or a goose. I'm not, thank goodness. Now, I think Brant's idea here is at least worth understanding, because I have found, quite frankly, in my reading through the Book of Mormon now, because of this idea that Brant says, things begin to make a little more sense, rather than from the traditional viewpoint with which I've been raised in understanding the Book of Mormon. And, I mean, it's a logical viewpoint. This might or might not be accurate. That's not the case. That's not the point. The point is, as we ponder the Scriptures, as we try to come to some sort of an understanding of how come so-and-so did that, or how come they reacted this way, or one thing that has struck me forcefully this year so far, I'm getting through the Book of Mormon for the third time now, is the stupid way the people keep telling their leaders that they want a king. And the leaders try as they might to dissuade the people. Sometimes they end up having a king, and in almost every case, the king goes bad. And the people end up in bondage. And they have the example right before them, within just a few previous years before, and they turn around and want a king. You know, Alma escapes King Noah, who murdered the prophet Abinadi, and no sooner than he takes the people to the waters of Mormon, the land of Mormon, the forest of Mormon, they baptize him, he organizes a church, then the people want him to be a king. It's utterly astonishing to me to see the short-sightedness of the groups. It is a fascinating commentary. This, in a way, helps understand that, in some respects. So I really like how Brant does this. Now, I'm going to read to you 1 Nephi chapter 2, verses 9 through 14, because this sets up the situation. And so it's very important. And when my father saw that the waters of the river emptied into the mountain, or the fountain of the Red Sea, he spake unto Laman, saying, this is where they're in the valley of Lemuel. And Lehi gives his Qasida, the authentic desert Arabian poetry, to his sons. It's very interesting text that Nibley has commented on. Anyway, he spake unto Laman when he saw this river. And he says, oh, that thou mightst be like unto this river, continually flowing into the fountain of all righteousness. And he said unto Lemuel, oh, that thou mightst be like unto this valley, firm and steadfast and immovable, in keeping the commandments of the Lord. Now this he spake because of the stiffneckedness of Laman and Lemuel. For behold, they did murmur in many things against their father, because he was a visionary man, and he had led them out of the land of Jerusalem to leave the land of their inheritance, and their gold, and their silver, and their precious things to perish in the wilderness. Notice how this is worded. I love this wording, because this is a genuine way that Hebrew works. This constant repetition of and. He led them from the land of their inheritance, and their gold, and their silver, and their precious things to perish in the wilderness. That's beautiful Hebrew. Really is. And this, they said, because he had done the foolish imaginations of his heart. And thus Laman and Lemuel, being the eldest, that's a clue. Laman and Lemuel were the eldest. They did murmur against their father, and they did murmur because they knew not the dealings of that God who had created them. Neither did they believe that Jerusalem, that great city, could be destroyed, according to the words of the prophets. And they were like unto the Jews who were at Jerusalem, who sought to take away the life of my father. And it came to pass that my father did speak unto them in the valley of Lemuel with power, being filled with the Spirit, until their frames did shake before him. And he did confound them, and they durst not utter against him. Wherefore they did as he commanded them. So this is the situation with. Oh, and I'm in volume 1 of Gardner's commentary, page 90, 91, 92, 93, 94. With these verses, now realize Nephi is writing this. This is Nephi's understanding of their family situation. This is his perception. What he does is he sets up the major conflict within the new colony. Laman and Lemuel are murmurers, they're doubters, and they're troublemakers. This is how Nephi records them in the record. Not only do they grieve at having to abandon their riches, in verse 11, but they cannot believe God's revelation through the prophets. The conflict is depicted as lying between the world, that is, apostate Jerusalem, and Yahweh. And how Nephi sets this up is, Laman and Lemuel represents the world, that is, Jerusalem. They're constantly harping on that theme, aren't they? When you read this record, you see that. And they were like unto the Jews who were at Jerusalem, who sought to take away the life of my father. That's verse 13. And Lehi represented Yahweh's power in verse 14. So this is how the record is set up. Well, both by numbers and by birthright, Laman and Lemuel occupy a significant position. Now, this is interesting how if we come to understand this. Their position is superior to Nephi's, according to the ancient Israelite law. They are the eldest sons. Their disagreement with their father portends the eventual split in the family itself. So it's being set up to show this conflict. Our portraits of Laman and Lemuel are quite negative, but we must remember that they are drawn by Nephi well after the family has been ripped in two by their actions. Some of Nephi's later feelings will also color his description of the earlier period. So, the situation in Jerusalem after Josiah's reforms may shed some light on understanding Laman and Lemuel. So this gets interesting as we understand the outside history that is not recorded in the Book of Mormon, as we come to get a firmer grasp of the biblical record. Now the Book of Mormon, psychologically as well as historically, makes better sense. There's more depth to this. It's correct. It's right. This is how they would act and function and think and do. So this is unique. This is really interesting.